So you probably think of water as, well, just water, right? The simplest thing out there. But what if I told you there's a company out there claiming their water's actually a piece of technology? Yeah, you heard that right. Today, we're going to dig into the materials behind Si14 silver colloid water and figure out how they're trying to position a simple drink as a seriously high-tech product. And right off the bat, you can just see this is something different. I mean, look at it. The branding for this stuff, Si14 silver colloid water, it looks like it belongs in a sci-fi movie, not on a supermarket shelf. You've got these digital patterns, this super clinical design. The message they're sending is loud and clear. This is not just water. And here's their big claim, the hook they hang everything on. Not just water, a controlled environment. Okay, but what in the world does that even mean for a bottle of water? It's a pretty bold statement, right? Super intriguing. So let's unpack exactly what they're getting at. All right, so let's get into their central claim. How do they actually try to justify calling this stuff technology? Well, looking at their documents, you can see a really clear strategy. They're trying to completely reframe what's in the bottle. And what's interesting is it's just as much about what they say it isn't as what they say it is. Okay, so here's the key distinction they make. On one side, you've got your typical supplement, something you just add to your diet. But on the other side, they're calling this a technology, a whole precision engineered system. The message is pretty obvious. They're saying this isn't just some ingredient mixed into water, the whole thing is the engineered product. And all their marketing language backs this up. I mean, you hear phrases like ultra pure silver matrix or high stability nanosystem. That sounds like something a tech company would say. Not a water company, right? It's all very deliberate, designed to scream precision, purity, and total control. Okay, so if it's a technology, the big question is, how is it actually made? Let's dive into the science they lay out in their materials. So first, let's cover the basics. What we're talking about here is colloidal silver. Now, all that means is you have these teeny tiny nano-sized particles of silver that are just floating, suspended in super purified water. They're not dissolved, like salt in water. They're so small that they just hang there, perfectly spread out. Now, this next part is a really big deal for them, how they make these nanoparticles. Their documents really hammer this home. They use a physical method, not a chemical one. So think of it this way. Instead of using chemicals or acids to create a silver compound, it's more like they're physically knocking microscopic specks off a bar of pure silver. The whole point, they argue, is to guarantee absolute purity and stability, with zero chemical gunk left over. And the numbers here, they're just mind-boggling. Get this. According to their materials, every single 100 milliliter bottle has over 1 trillion active silver nanoparticles inside. 1 trillion. That number really helps you grasp just how tiny nano actually is. This is where it gets even more interesting. They talk about something called a nano water shell. It's a pretty wild concept. The idea is that each one of those trillion silver particles is wrapped up in a little cage of water molecules. This supposedly makes it biocompatible. Basically, it tricks your body's cells into not freaking out and treating it like a foreign invader. And this little water shell is also what they say keeps everything stable and perfectly suspended. All right, so you can talk about technology all day, but you need proof, right? Well, they ground all these claims in a scientific report from a pretty serious research institute. So let's take a look at the evidence they present. So here it is. The report is from the Moscow PI Herzen Research Oncological Institute. And what it does is look into the biocidal properties, that's a fancy word for microbe killing, of these supposedly super pure silver colloids. And this is the picture that's worth 1,000 words, isn't it? On the left, you've got a petri dish that's just crawling with bacteria. Total mess. Then on the right, you see a dish that was treated with their silver solution, and it's almost completely clear. That dramatic difference is really the foundation of their whole scientific claim. So, what did this report actually find when it went head-to-head with some nasty microbes? Let's break down the results from the lab tests. Okay, the results they lay out are pretty eye-popping. They're claiming 100% suppression of common bugs like E. coli. But here's the real kicker. They also claim 100% suppression of MRSA. You know, that antibiotic-resistant staph infection, the superbug? And it wasn't just bacteria. It was apparently just as potent against fungi, wiping out one candida population by more than 1,000,000 to 1. So where does this all lead? Well, the report wraps up by suggesting that this kind of thing could be a natural alternative to chemical antibiotics. And that's a huge statement. It shifts the whole conversation. Suddenly, this isn't just a wellness product, it's being framed as a potential weapon in the big fight against germs, especially the ones that are getting too smart for our current drugs. Okay, so you've got the lab science. Now, how do you take that and turn it into something people actually buy? The source materials show a really specific plan for taking this tech and making it a high-end lifestyle product. And they're not aiming for the grocery store aisle, no way. This is positioned as a super premium experience. They're targeting high-end restaurants, going after people who are into conscious consumption. It's smart, right? By putting it in a place where purity and quality are everything, they're tying the product to luxury and sophistication. The whole vibe is that it's so pure and has such a soft taste, it's the perfect thing to have with a fancy meal. But what's really wild is how many different uses they imagine for this stuff. It's not just for drinking. According to their documents, they see it being used in medicine, in skincare, even for purifying water and space for astronauts, not to mention professional cleaning. They're really positioning this as a kind of foundational do-anything technology. So when you boil it all down, the story they're telling is that this product, Si14, is setting a completely new standard. It's about way more than just quenching your thirst. It's about this meeting point, this convergence of insane purity, cutting-edge nanotech, and a whole new way of thinking about health and lifestyle. And that leaves us with one last big question to chew on. Looking at everything they've presented, this product seems to have a foot in two different worlds. So is this the future of water? Or is water just the delivery system for what could be the future of a whole different kind of technology?